Hey everyone, it's Miguel Ochoa, and we are here with our winter canine, Centenario, ready to help you get ready for winter. Let's go. Today, we're going to be bringing you guys a couple of helpful tips to help maintain your house, whether it's an owner-occupied house that you own or it's a rental property. There's a lot of value here when it comes to actually learning to take care of the property, because a lot of the smaller issues that cost maybe a couple of $100, if that, to fix now, can create issues in the future that cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So as always, let's take a look at these next couple of tips and see how you can benefit. Tip number one, we need to start looking into your home's heating and cooling systems. Most heating and air conditioning systems will typically last anywhere from 12 to 15 years. And whenever we're out in the field, we can see units that have been going strong for 10 and some that even push further than 20 years. And that ultimately comes down to how well you maintain the equipment. At the very least, before the weather gets colder, look at those filters. Typically, we want to change them every 3 to 6 months. It's a couple bucks at Home Depot to swap that out, but at the end of the day, it's going to make your air a lot more cleaner, and it's going to prep you going into the next couple of months here. Before it gets too cold outside, I recommend having your systems inspected by reputable HVAC contractors. And if you need any recommendations, just ask. Having a contractor check your system and make sure that your heat is going to work when you need it is invaluable. Things like capacitors can go out and are relatively easy to fix. But when it happens and you least expect it, in the middle of the night, cold of winter, anything, it can be a big issue, major issue, to get any of these service technicians out to your house, because with the amount of service calls that there have been just in these last couple of months, these technicians are backed up anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. So do yourself a favor, and before your house's heat goes out, get your systems inspected. It's a very low cost expense, and it's gonna save you thousands. All right guys, moving on with tip number 2, be sure to paint, caulk, and seal any exterior wood. All of the wood trim on the exterior of your home needs to be protected from the elements. The woods that we use on decks are typically pressure treated wood, or a rot resistant species of wood. But the wood trim around the exterior doors and the windows is just a 1-inch thick, typically pine board that deteriorates very quickly if it's not protected. We tend to see a lot of rotten wood around the outside of bay windows and exterior doors especially. So be sure to pay close attention to those areas when you're walking in or out of your house. Replacing the trim is a very big cost, and even professionals can struggle with making this repair look good. The best thing to do here is to make sure that it doesn't rot in the first place, and that means keeping it painted and caulked. This is a job that most people can do themselves. Once the wood is rotten and needs to be replaced, then you're probably gonna have to hire a good trim carpenter to correct any of these issues. So before that happens, take the time and go around your house and make sure that none of the caulk is cracking and that your paint isn't chipping or flaking away. If it is, simply scrape away the bad paint or caulk and apply a fresh coat or bead. Even though your deck is made of treated wood, it still needs attention. You don't necessarily need to stain and seal your deck every single year, but just make sure it's protected. To check this, simply pour water on the deck. If the water beads up, then you're good. If the water absorbs into the deck, then it's probably time to clean and reseal. All right guys, talking about sealing, we're gonna talk about tip number 3 here, which also does include a couple of other hard surfaces. Another hard surface to pay attention to is the concrete patios surrounding your house, any driveways or walkways as well. We have to make sure that these are protected from the elements. Every now and again, be sure to apply a concrete sealer to all of your flat exterior concrete surfaces. Take this time to inspect the concrete before and fill any cracks prior to applying that sealer, so water cannot get in and freeze over this winter. This is going to ensure that your expensive concrete lasts a very long time. Perfect. And for those of you that have an asphalt driveway, now is the time to think about resealing that as well. It's not very expensive to have a company come out and give it a quick spray of sealer, or you can simply buy a bucket of sealer and roll it on yourself. If your driveway has developed cracks, then keep in mind patching these prior to applying the sealer will be in your best interest. Number 4. This next tip is to simply check your drainage. First step in doing this is to make sure that the soil around your foundation hasn't settled too much. If you find any low spots, simply pack it or fill it with some soil. This will prevent any water intrusion in or around your crawl space, which can lead to major issues. Once you have made sure that the perimeter is graded, go around and check your rain gutters downspouts. Make sure that the rainwater is getting moved away from the home, and if you have rain drains that lead to storm drains, this is even more ideal as it will send water out to the street as opposed to around the property, which can again create major settling issues if this water seeps down below the home. All right guys, we kept tip number 4 a little bit on the shorter side because it does talk about crawl space and water intrusion, but I promise we will wrap back into that in these next couple of tips. Which brings us to tip number 5, is to clean your gutters. Once the leaves are pretty much off the trees, it's time to clean those gutters. When those gutters back up, they overflow. And when they overflow, the water runs down your home, speeding up the deterioration of your exterior. This can also lead to the deterioration of your foundation, water infiltration, and settling under your concrete porches and walkways, which can create massive problems if this isn't addressed immediately. If the gutters aren't cleaned in time, they can actually start to separate from the house. Cleaning leaves is way cheaper than replacing the gutters. So keep this in mind next time you see water pouring from your gutters and you think, I'll get it later. Haha. We know that's probably never gonna happen. So don't wait and get on this. All right guys, leading up to tip number 6, cleaning your chimneys and ordering that firewood. One of the best parts of winter is cuddling up next to that warm, cozy fire with your beverage of choice and just feeling that warmth radiate throughout the entire family room, living room, wherever it is. But we gotta make sure that that fireplace is ready for that. So with that being said, some homeowners will actually move into their house and never inspect the fireplace until the day that it sounds like a good idea, only to find out that the past owners have never used it themselves. There have been instances where the fireplace has been blocked off at the roof or chimney cap, and the new homeowner starts the fire. The home gets covered in black smoke, or soot as it's called, and it becomes a bigger problem even after that. A good chimney sweep company will make sure that that fireplace is safe to use, and they can also identify any maintenance problems that might need immediate attention. So before you cover your house in black soot, smoke, whatever it is that you want to call it, get a chimney sweep out there, inspect the mortar and the entire perimeter of the fireplace, and make sure that it's ready to go for this winter. Once that's all done, make sure that you're ordering plenty of wood and keeping it in a dried space so you don't have to worry about any issues that might come out not having firewood and having to go out and get it in the middle of winter. And since there's gonna be a lot of smoke filling the house, this brings us to tip number 7, which is how it ties back into every single tip in the show. It's test your smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. It might seem a little, not as serious as you might think, but winter is the time that most house fires happen. It's the time of year when we're blasting the heat, we're running that furnace at max capacity and building fires inside and outside our homes. We are also much more likely to have our homes closed up tight. So carbon monoxide is a much bigger hazard. Check all of your smoke detectors to make sure that they are working too, and that they have good batteries. If your home is not equipped with carbon monoxide detectors, consider getting some. Smoke and carbon monoxide detectors are cheap and they are readily available at any local hardware store. So don't cheap out on this and make sure you have those detectors so we can hopefully save you from any issues this winter. Some people think that smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors are required in a house. And yes, although they are required in a house, it doesn't necessarily mean that whoever you bought the house from or whoever installed them or whatever knew what they were doing, actually installed them or anything. So first things first, make sure that you have those smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. And despite not actually having to have them, it's a way bigger health benefit for you. So make sure you have them. And if you don't, go go to your local Home Depot. All right, guys, and we're moving on to tip number 8, one of my favorite ones, shutting down these sprinkler systems and actually draining the lines. It's one of my favorite ones because a lot of people actually don't know you have to do this. And when you have sprinkler systems, it's really surprising to people that you have to drain these systems out. Imagine end of summer, your sprinklers are done running. If you don't drain them, there's water that's in those lines all throughout winter. And when the temperatures drop below freezing, that water can expand in the line depending on what it's made out of and crack it. This is why you have to drain those systems. Most of the newer systems require that these lines be blown out, and if this isn't necessarily something that you're comfortable doing or know how to do, then hire a professional. It's much better to have someone with the experience in this field to do it, rather than have the potential for something else to break and need to fork out the additional money for repairs. Also, your hose bibs or exterior lines are also unprotected from the elements. They can freeze over in the winter, and I've seen them even split water lines deep inside of the houses, flooding the basements or causing other types of issues. Of course, different materials have different weather ratings, but take the time to do a basic drain of the line. To do this, you can simply shut off the water valve to your outside spigot, then go outside and open that exterior spigot valve and let that water drain freely. You don't have to get every single drop out. And at the end of the day, as long as there's air in that line and not filled with water, you should be fine. Leave the lines off until you really need it or until next spring, just to prevent any issues. All right, guys, those beautiful, luscious lawns that are ready to go in the springtime are typically prepared for beforehand, which brings us to tip number 9, preparing your lawn for the winter and setting it up for a great spring. If you want that beautiful spring lawn, you have to give it attention in the fall. Then, in about late October or November, apply a fertilizer and a winterizer. Some things don't grow well in colder climates, but this step can help your grass stand a better chance at surviving and ensuring a beautiful lawn for years to come. With your lawn, be sure to check those trees. Trees can be a big issue, and before those beautiful leaves fall, take a look at them and make sure they're still healthy. During the winter, trees can get covered in snow, and once they get too heavy, they can break off and collapse, causing substantial damage to your house or your neighbors. Maybe even both. So don't wait any longer and start evaluating those trees around your property. Tip number 11, this is one of the most important tips, and I say this why? Because this is one of the bigger issues that I've seen within our community, within the clients that want to go to sell their house. You might not know that you have an attic space, or you might know, but you never go into it. And you might not know, or you might know that you have a crawl space, but you don't actually go into it. But when winter starts rolling in, there's animals that are looking for warmth. And if your house has open areas where they can go either into the attic or into the crawl space, get ready, because not only is it a breeding ground for any animals going in there, they can also die and decay. So let's go ahead and go through this tip and get some helpful tips so everyone knows exactly what to look for. Any of these critters can cause lots of damage and potentially even health problems. So it's a good idea to think ahead and start off by stapling some screening behind any gable vents or any openings in your attic from the inside. Although it still looks great on the exterior, animals aren't going to be able to get in, or at least be deterred from getting in. We've seen situations where clients actually don't know that there's animals or rats or birds or whatever getting into their attic or into their crawl space. So these animals just live there, and they live there, and they live there. And over time, they start to decay. So as I mentioned before, so when you have an issue, when you have a furnace duct that has fallen, either in the attic or in the crawl space, and you have decaying animals in there, this is why it's a big issue, and a lot of people don't realize it, but those weird smells that you get in your home sometimes, animals can die next to ductwork, venting, or anything, and start filling the house with a very unpleasant aroma of sorts. So this is why it's very, very important to check this out. One of the things that is the biggest issue right now are rats. So if you haven't gone to your crawl space, you haven't gone to your attic, one of the things that you need to make sure you do before it gets way too cold outside is to hire a good inspector or have a family friend go into your crawl space or attic and just check the genuine condition. Make sure that they know what they're looking at. You want to look at the batting, you want to look at the insulation, you want to look for any water leaks, because this can be a major issue as well coming into the colder season, or wetter season, I should say. But even with animals coming in, it's easily noticeable. You can see insulation falling if you have subflooring insulation. You can see how rats tunnel. You can see rat droppings. You can see bat droppings, you can see bird poop. It's not hard, and these signs aren't things that you need to have a license to look for. It's just, you have to be willing to get a little dirty. And let me tell you, more often than not, we will find rats in houses and clients don't even know. So if you're one of those clients that doesn't like having unexpected animals or any friendly visitors, be sure to do your due diligence, check your crawl space, check your attic. Don't make your house a furry home hotel, and make sure that you're getting all of those animals out of there. Also with this, just very quickly, be sure to walk not only on the inside of the attic and the crawl space, but walk around the entire perimeter of the home's exterior. Look at the crawl space vents, look at the gable vents, look at the E vents, look at any hole or exterior crevice that leads into an attic or a space inside of your house. If you see it, you should probably cover it up from the inside or the outside. They sell lots of stuff, but what we are trying to do here, just so you guys understand, is make sure that there is absolutely no way that any critters can get in. And you guys should be doing a visual inspection, believe it or not, every week or 2 weeks. It's very easy, it takes about 10 minutes of your time, but believe me when I say some of these rats and these other animals can chew through the wire meshing. So if you have that wire mesh and it looks good, don't count on that 100%. Be sure to walk through the house, walk through the outside. It doesn't take a lot of time, but if you own the house, it's gonna save you thousands of dollars in repairs, I guarantee you. And if you don't own the house and you're renting it, it's gonna save your landlord thousands of repairs. So depending on how you like them, be sure you're taking care of their stuff too. Let's move on to the next tip. All right guys, and if you have a covered patio with furniture, this next step is for you. Step number 12, cover that patio furniture. If you're looking to extend the life of your outside decor and seating arrangements, get your patio furniture protected. You can find some pretty good deals on Amazon, and once you have the protective covers, make sure you wait until a clear, warm day so you don't have to trap any moisture on it or under it. When moisture gets trapped under these covers, it can create an environment for mold spores to grow. Might sound like we're going a little too far, but I've seen it happen several times with some very beautiful exterior furniture. And you don't know until you know. So do what you will with that tidbit of information, and keep in mind, exterior patio covers are very much less expensive than the actual exterior furnishings. So it's a small investment, but at the end of the day, this is gonna ensure that the quality of your patio equipment is just as usable for next year as it was this year. All right guys, step number 13, last but not least, preparing for snow removal. This is if we actually get snow, but this is something that people will try to find themselves preparing for, usually last minute, only to find that the supplies in stores have been wiped completely clean. Now is the time to buy your shovels, your road salts, and if you have a snowblower, it's time to fire that bad boy up and make sure it's rolling before the snow starts coming in. Ultimately, preparing for the seasons can seem like a daunting task, but with some good preparation on your end and our checklist and you learning exactly what to look for, it's something that can be easily managed and incorporated into your weekly routine. If there's something else that you think we need to add to the list, or if you've already learned something after owning your house for a year, 2 years, 10, 20, or even renting one, let us know by dropping a comment below. And as always, we hope you liked today's video. If you would be so awesome to show us your support and give this video a like or a heart or share anything of value here below in the comments, we would really appreciate it, and that would help us reach out to the community even more. Thank you so much, and we hope to see you all very soon.